I'm really happy to be here to share some ideas with you today. And so I came in 2011 and really didn't have a sense of just how prepared and eagerly students are to do service. And it just seems so natural here, as most of you know. They just want to jump in and do it. And so some ideas that I wanted to share with you today. First is, what I realized that we've got all kinds of alumni who, they leave our classes and they go out in the world and they do great things. And one thing that I'm finding to be really helpful in my courses is to connect with alumni and to find out what they're doing and to make a service project that's related to what somebody's doing somewhere else. So I know I don't expect you to read this fine print. I can blow it up here right by doing this zoom here. So there was an alumna who, this was a couple years ago, shot me an email, and I'll tell you how we turned this into a service project, a little mini service project. But so she wrote about her experiences of teaching and living in Barranquilla, Colombia, and all of the challenges she was facing in teaching English over there. And if you look at the bottom paragraph, here's where she says, "However, there are a few students of mine who totally refuse to learn the language and frequently try to disrespect me in front of the class, the entire class. There is at least one student like that in each class, and he or she continuously tries to disrupt the harmony of the class. I've been extremely strict." She goes on, but here's the key word here. She says, "I don't know how to control the class at times." And I just thought, hey, this looks like a great case study. This could be something that I could present in front of my TESOL students, and we talk about it. And so we did that. I just showed them the email. I got her permission. Showed my students the email in my TESOL methods class, and we turned that into like a case study project. We gave her feedback. I asked students to write ideas down for her. We pulled the ideas from our readings. And so that was an idea for service learning. So maybe that might be helpful for some of you. Find an alumni who's stuck somewhere. An alumni who's stuck somewhere in the world, needs some help, and get your students working with them. So that's one idea for you. Another one is, okay, here we go. Again, fine print. But another, course projects can be just such a drag for students because they think they're just going to throw them in the wastebasket when they're done. Sometimes that's what they're used to doing. And so what I do now for courses, I try to find a final course project that could relate to something that's going on somewhere in the world. And so we all know about People for Care and Learning. And this was back in 2012, I think, that you sent me an email from a group of students who really needed help setting up a curriculum over there. And so I got my students working on that curriculum as part of their final course project. And so instead of me giving them a test, what they had to do was turn in ideas for this People for Care and Learning, and they had to relate it. And I think something that you might find useful, excuse me, is it's like, how do you tie the key terms of the class into the final project? And so I would just ask them to write a rationale for why were they turning the proposal they did, and they had to use 20, 30, 40, whatever many key terms from class in designing that rationale. So that's an idea for you. But one thing that I'm finding really useful is videos in all of this, because you can tell students about a final course project, but they might have a hard time relating to that, and they're like, well, how can I be connected enough with that to really want to help? And so I'll show you a video that I put together. It's quick here, but with students. It's on my computer. Sorry, I get nervous up front when I try to find things, and it's here. It's on my.
It's not you're not logged in as you.
No, it's here.
Treasure.
I'll just find it. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just looking. It's on my hard drive. Where'd my thumb drive be here? Oh, that's right. I unplugged my thumb drive. Okay. It was old.
Bullish.
Okay, so here's the video that I showed to my students before they got started on this project for People for Care and Learning. Okay, I'm here at the, walking up to the English Learning Center in Siem Reap, Cambodia, and we're going to meet Marie, who is one of the English instructors here, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Well, come on inside.
All right. So where are we, Marie?
Right now we are in Siem Reap, Cambodia, inside of PCL's Learning Center. So welcome.
All right, well, thank you. So my students are going to be working with some of your students in this English Learning Center, is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and I guess the way they're going to be working with them is indirectly by helping to prepare classroom activities. Do I understand correctly?
Yeah, classroom activities and beefing up a curriculum that we already have in place.
Okay.
It is somewhat bare bones and needs more to be added to it.
Okay. Can you tell us just for a minute here what type of work you do, what type of English lessons you're teaching to these students, what level they're at, and
Sure. The students that your students will be working with are 200 level, which means they're intermediate, all levels of intermediate. They're lower intermediate, mid-intermediate, and then high intermediate.
Okay.
And most of them are young adults who come from poor villages. They come into Siem Reap to get a good education, but generally they can't afford it. We offer our classes at a discounted rate. They come for 10-week blocks. They learn with us. Their English improves, and they get jobs in the tourist industry, and then they can provide for their families.
All right. Well, that's great. That's pretty much what I wanted our students to see here is what this place is all about and what it looks like on the inside here. Do you have anything else you want to tell them before we sort of say goodbye here?
Sure, yeah. Basically just know that at the grassroots level, you are helping young adults who are about your age to get a leg up and out of poverty, to change their own lives, to change their families' lives, to change their community, to change their future, and ultimately their country. We're talking the poorest city in Southeast Asia, the poorest province in Cambodia, and what you're doing truly, truly will make a difference now and for the kingdom of God.
All right, that's awesome. Well, we look forward to working with you on this, Marie, and thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. So they saw that video, and then after the video, that, of course, raised their interest, and they started to think more about what it'd be like to work with people for care and learning. I had them do a little bit of research on the place. And then, this is key, I think, is you have to give really specific, expectations. Here's exactly what you're going to do for the final project. And so, again, I don't expect you to read this, but this is the email that Marie, who you just met on the video, she sent to me, this to my students, explaining, the first paragraph, what does it look like to teach here? What are some important things for our students to know, and then what exactly they needed my students to do. And so that's just an idea to find somebody, an alumni, find somebody overseas who needs help, get them to make a video for you of their project, what's going on, and then turn your students loose on the final project. And then the last the piece that Carolyn wanted me to share was about our English Language Center. And so when I came here to Lee in 2011, we had all of these students who needed English language help, be it people in the community, a lot of adults. I had no idea how many internationals there are in Cleveland, but I met hundreds of internationals right here in that first semester who I realized needed English language help. Walker came in 2011, you might remember that, and Walker had all of these Germans who needed English language instruction, and so we set up the English Language Center to provide help for these students, for the Germans. And what we've done is we've created a mentoring course where I mentor my students, and Dr. Boersma, by the way, I want to introduce, we work together on this, David Boersma, and we're doing this, but we work with these students, and with our Lee students, we train them how to teach English as a second language, and we mentor them on Thursday night, so it's a 1 credit hour course, but then as soon as they get mentored, the next hour they go and teach. And so they get mentored, they teach, get mentored, they teach. And so it's always this hands-on experience of they learn from us how to teach English as a second language, but then they go out and do it. And so it's a mentoring course, and it's 20 hours of service over 10 weeks. And so that works pretty well in the community. I have about 3 weeks before we start teaching the people in the community where we really help get the students ready. And what I do with them is instead of coming up with it all set up, I just say, hey, look, we need your help. And I try to put them as if they were setting up something for the first time almost, and they get that excitement about it. But anyway, they can graduate with 2 years of English language teaching experience on their resume by the time they're done doing that. And I want to just close with this short video. The thing that I think really makes a difference here at Lee is our students. No matter what project we get them involved in, the community, I think, really senses this love that comes from our students that they're not going to get in a lot of other places. And so here is here's this video of one of our students in the English Language Center from Cuba. And he was just sharing last semester what it meant for him to work with our students. Yeah, I opened it 10 times. Arlie, what time is it? Okay, all right, just want to show this.
Grateful for this class and for all the instructor. All the tutors, very good instructor, because I see love in your class.
You see the love.
Yes, I see love in your class. I feel your love
Is
in
English?
our class.
Is it important to learn English? Do you think?
Yes.
Why do you think it's important to learn English?
Oh, yes, I need the English in United States because in Cuba don't speak English, but in the United States other person speak English.
Okay.
I need to learn.
Yeah. Well, we're so glad to have you here. Thank you so much, Esteban.
Okay, it's not easy like for me and for my wife because our memory is not same when I am young.
We can relate, right?
Grateful for this class
Thankful for this
and
class.
for all the instructors.
Yeah, that's the same part. But anyway, what I've noticed with our Lee students they do it so much better than other places where I've seen English language teaching because they do bring this energy and this love into the class that's transformative. So we've seen this program go now. We had people from last semester was our largest ever, about 40 students from the community from 16 different language backgrounds coming to learn English. And we had 18 Lee students who were teaching all of those students. And so anyway, these are just ideas. Use alumni, create photo projects, and also start an English language center, something like that. So thank you. Arlie, do you want to just come up and we get questions at the end?
I'll try to be very quick in here. I have a tendency to speak in tongues when I'm under pressure. But I'm just going to share something I shared last semester about classroom without walls. Well, I started teaching when I was 12 years old in a daily vacation Bible school, and I actually just started teaching underneath a mango tree. So this picture is kind of reminiscence when I was in the Philippines and I was teaching a bunch of kids who are there. And I didn't know that this is also a kind of a trend in other third world countries where people are actually learning and teaching underneath a tree. And so, and one thing that I really discovered while I was teaching is that most kids tend to learn when they know what the learning could be used for. So it's more application stuff. And so throughout the time I was my teaching experiences from Bible school, daily vacation Bible school to college, and even when I was in Hawaii, a charter school wherein they have a self-discovery in trying to solve problems that they have. So what I'm going to share to you is something that how I was able to develop the strategies of integrated service to your own classes. So, but here are some of the lessons that I've learned. So first of all students learn differently. They have different stages and facets of how they would learn, and they have different ways to address certain issues and solving different problems. And all of them are coming in with different ideas, perspectives, or knowledge about the topics and issues that they are confronted with. But if you give them a chance to explore individually or by group, they tend to be able to solve problems creatively, and they have more ways of how they can think outside the box than I normally would do as a social scientist. So I encountered this idea on what we call a problem-based learning, just echoing what Chris had mentioned, that if there's some certain problems, then they can be able to see the outcome of what they're actually trying to address. And I'm not going to go to the details of this, but what this project-based learning means is that they are able to have voice on the process of trying to solve the problems. They're able to have a systematic way on how to approach certain things, and also be able to reflect if this process of solving can be the most effective or efficient way to address those things. So what do we do in sociology? So there are a couple of classes that I integrated, excuse me, integrated services, and one of them is my criminology classes. We just started criminal justice last semester. So we've been partnering with the Arlie County Jail and also the juvenile detention here in Cleveland. And so what I do with my class is that I would take them to a series of field trips to these institutions and ask them intentionally of what they have to look for when they're visiting these places. So one of these is that we have pre-departure activities. I ask students to be intentional in observing what are some of the trends and variables that they think are potentially causing kids to become delinquent. I ask them to incorporate some of the theories that we learn in class, and I would also ask them to see how they are treated based on their experiences. If they're going to be looking at how are they treated, these kids, in these structures. During the field trip, I asked them to observe also intentionally what works well in the processing of kids and what does not work and what needs improvement. And then when we get back to our class, I asked them to have some sort of answering this question by doing some sort of reflective paper. And not just stopping there, but to really address the issues of the things of the problems that they have. So for example, I want them to do some programs that they think that are likely to ameliorate the situation that these juvenile delinquents. And so here are some of the outcomes of their projects. So say one of them said maybe we should do a wilderness treatment programs for these at-risk kids. Maybe we should attack every areas of kids' life, like a multi-systemic, multi-dimensional programs. Some of them seems that some of the kids are being bullied, and maybe we should do an anti-bullying program. And there's a list of all programs that they developed. And just recently, the Crosspoint Church of God had allowed us to use one of their facilities to be for the use of addressing youth needs and also at-risk kids. So some of my students are actually going to be starting some of these programs on their own, and they will be doing some wilderness programs for kids, and we're going to be partnering with the Juvenile Detention Center for that. So it's a process, but at least coming from that class and just that basic field trip, they're able to create something tangible for them to address these issues. I'm going to also go look into another example. I'm not going to go for is this community development class that I did. Last semester, I was able to receive some small amount of money to do some sort of evaluation for the needy area, the hotspot area. So my research methods class and my community development class, I put them all together, and we said maybe we should start doing something, and how we can incorporate your skill set and research in looking at the needs and assets of the community, and then we'll create programs towards the end. And so some of them went to different areas and different groups, like youth, elderly, women, people with disability, people who are economically stressed, and looking at various aspects of the issues. And towards the end, students would sit down and say, okay, now we see some of these variables, let's design some sort of a tool to look at some of these assets and needs. And last semester, we did a big survey, about 120 households, and it's not just only my class, some other individuals also, and students here at Lee, so what we're doing, and they started getting involved. So we did a focus group discussion. We also did some survey, and students tends to address more, and they're pretty much more we call this appreciate the idea that they see firsthand the problems that we're talking in class by talking to other people when they are in the field. And so towards the end, they were able to, I asked them to make some sort of programs, and these are some of the recommendations that we have. One of the key issues that they found is the disconnect, and that's the kind of the theme that we somehow resolved through all the interviews that we have, and even the survey. And said, so the students said, why don't we do and create a block party to provide a venue for people to connect? Like we can spearhead this, but eventually the community member should be the one designing it with the support of of our students. And so we partner with NAACP and some other community organization in the area. And this was last spring, 2015. We have more than 400 people in the community came, and some of our students too. We have hot dogs and hamburgers, and we able to connect with some of the relationships with people who are in this community. Some of our students, I speak a little Spanish, but some of our students who are very fluent in Spanish were able to bring some of the Hispanic communities and some of them also in the African American community. And these are some of the pictures that we take. We have a concert, we have a dance party, and we also have some hamburgers and kite and all sorts of things. But as a result, and as a recommendation from the students, say maybe we should have a central intake and referral program for residence needs. And I thought that was a very brilliant suggestion coming from students, given the problem that they were given, that a lot of the service providers in this community is very fragmented, and there's no one stop for them to go. So said maybe we should have a central intake, and we refer them to these different agencies. Some of them felt that there should be more emphasis on at-risk youth, and maybe address the issues of combining the senior and preschool classroom and activities for senior, and of course establishing a learning community and service-oriented task force here at the university, and have the university becomes a liaison to the community. And so that was just the initial stage of what we've been doing, and now there's a lot of call, and I do encourage you guys that are, like for example, in the prison that I'm teaching in jail, they want to do a community choir, prison choir. So I was talking to some music faculty who teaches choir who would like to get their kids involved in teaching inmates to do stuff. And there's some research that helps them out to suggest that choir music actually is a good therapy for inmates. But that would be a good thing, and theater and stuff like that, we could do something in the community. All right. But here are some of the barriers for participation. Most students have not always, say time is always a conflict. Some of the opportunities were not at the convenient times. I'm just throwing this out so you guys know what kind of challenges you would be facing if you want to have this included in your course. Lack of knowledge about the opportunities, cannot afford any related costs like transportation, gas, going to these places. Teachers do not necessarily require these opportunities, or they're not very interested in helping the community. And they also do not believe the opportunities are useful for them. But if you go back to the problem-based approach and project-based approach, then they would appreciate, these are the skill set that I can use in order to help this community that I would like to do. So that pretty much gets on that.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
How's Treasure doing? You know he loves you, man. Actually, just for about 10 minutes, just going to briefly share a case study that germinated from our Business 290 class, Microenterprise and Economic Development. I've kind of pulled this from our syllabus. Basically, it's taking our students and then combining them with people from corporate and our departmental staff, and basically forming small businesses to help the poor and spread the gospel. So one of the case studies, the case study we'll present today is called Remedy Flies, as Carolyn alluded to earlier. So we start off with some of the problems that our class was exploring, and then we all face this as people living in extreme poverty, and we're in partnership with PCL, and so just like Chris, there's some great people over there, and back in 2009, Dr. Thompson was there, and so we saw that extreme poverty, and we wanted to come together to develop a program that would kind of address this, and so Cambodia is still one of the poorest countries in the world, and specifically in PCL, as you heard in your videos, that Siem Reap area, more specifically Takam village, is one of the poorest areas in the area of Cambodia. This was another problem that we were faced with when we went out there and did an assessment of that area and who we were partnering with. And we noticed that when we talk about failing church plants, in other words, when we look at these church plants in these small villages in Africa and these third world and emerging countries, there's a huge failure rate. And one of the reasons for that failure is that the pastors, in order to support themselves, have to be bivocational. These small villages from 50 to 200 or even 400 people cannot support a pastor. And so we were looking at, is there a way to possibly support and fund the pastors and help the resources for the church? And then there's this other problem, and how we came about this, it's almost like a perfect storm. You don't throw this thing out there and use the word, it's a God thing, because I'm definitely not that way, but it's fly fishing, really? Okay, bivocational pastors, plant churches, helping the poor, and fly fishing. How in the world could that ever come together? It so happened that some of us are passionate, and in fact, you'll see me dressing like half the time like I'm ready to go on the river, but it came together. And so there's a problem that we found in the business world, and those that don't know what a fly is, that's a picture of one right there. Now, the actual size of that is probably about 3/8 of an inch. So it's very, very small. And these flies imitate insects. So you can tell, you can buy that, you know that this product is very small. And one of the great things about importing and exporting is logistics and size. So one of the things that we wanted to try to do is find a product that we could get into the States, back and forth from Cambodia, etc. So this perfect storm came together, and it's really cool how it happened. So just to kind of give you an idea, we're making these flies, and so we're teaching the Cambodian people a skill set, and it's a hand time process, but it takes a lot of skill sets to learn that. And so we're actually looking. We're actually building in Takam and Andong, and we were starting in Nepal, but due to the earthquake, we've had to postpone this part of it. So we have certain pastors in each one of these villages that we're going into and actually training the skill and the craft of tying flies. You can't do it with a machine, it can only be done by hand. Now the great thing about tying flies is those flies that you saw that are about 3/8 of an inch, they cost about $3 a piece in the U.S. And the materials alone are just maybe 25 cents. So most of the cost is in the labor. So we're able to provide a very good way of living for some of the people in the village. Now, in addition to that, we give the pastors leadership and management skills so that they become bivocational and they're able to manage part of the business. And we're talking anywhere from 7 to about 15 villagers are taught these skill sets. We ship in the components, which you can put almost a 3-month worth of supply in a small pocketbook. And that's the beauty of it. We can get it in and then we can take it out, so that from a logistical standpoint. Then partnering with PCL, we have a director of Asian production, and then this company right here is called Rainey's. They're the world's 3rd largest fly producer. And remember the problem in business, demand outstrips supply. Right now there's about a 30% capacity shortfall in the world. So there's this huge demand, and it's anticipated to go for the next 15 to 20 years in this capacity because it's a hand-tied type of business. So basically, Rainey's has signed with us a 4-year exclusive contract. In other words, it's a multi-million-dollar contract, and we're able to help go in and do this around the world due to their help. Now that comes back to what Chris was saying. The biggest key learning about doing service learning and being sustainable is partnerships. And so if you're looking to do something impactful, it's just like, Arlie, and is that find those partners that you can develop synergy with. Because PCL provides the infrastructure out of the country for us, and we partnered with First Baptist and some of their infrastructure in Nepal. But Rainey's is the corporate sponsor. And so now we have something that's sustainable over potential decades that will make a true impact with these pastors, these churches, and these potential people. Now the great part about it is who's doing the work. We're teaching them business skills, how to do business planning, how to run operations, how do you train a labor force, how do you run an international company. And the great cool thing about it is the students from this class have actually come together and formed a viable legal entity. It's called Remedy Flies. They're just now building the website, and we're actually doing the training abroad. And they're actually owners of the business themselves. So it's just kind of cool. Some of the professors own it, some of the students own it, and then we have some people that are from around the country that own it. Our customers who've already kind of signed up with us, you've heard of Orvis, I'm sure, Cabela's, Bass Pro, and LL Bean. So you can see how, from a very small standpoint, from a microsatellite manufacturing standpoint, we're able to make an impact into some major companies in the area. So this is Jesse Riding, is the guy that owns Rainey's. We've actually partnered with the executive, a guy named Jeff Wagner out of Cabela's. That's Jeff also, who's a major editor for Fly Fusion magazine. So once again, I cannot emphasize enough is, networking and relationships to build these type of sustainable service learning outreach situations. Student benefits, I'm just telling you, the enthusiasm of our students. Okay, we're learning about strategic planning. Okay, we're going to go out and build a strategic plan for an actual company. Well, what about legal entities? Well, they actually went out and formed a legal entity. So they're actually taking what they're learning in the classroom and then applying it in the field, which is really cool. Just the whole service learning aspect. We're on international conference calls with people in Nepal and in Cambodia, and they're conducting it with just oversight from executives around the world. So once again, that kind of learning aspect. And then basically, the training aspect of the Cambodian people, honoring them, respecting them, and empowering them, it's a cool thing. This is what also we liked is that, sometimes for the service learning, where do we get the resources? There is a lot of grant money out there. You kind of got to get tapped into it a little bit. But even if there's not a lot of money, your local churches, they get excited about an idea. I would encourage you to go out there and tap into local businesses, small, medium, and large, your local churches, etc., to get the funding, because we initially got the seed money from First Baptist. So, just kind of encourage you there. There's also that national competition. We alluded to it when we started, is that there was seed money for the winners. And so we competed with, I think, approximately 200 to 300 different universities across the country, and there was 4 major regions. We won our regionals, and then we went to nationals, and there was 4 finalists, and it was Harvard. And Harvard was a mix of MIT, and they're both graduate school level. And then there's Arizona State, University of Chicago, and then Lee. Lee was the only undergrad team in the whole shebang. And some of the Harvard guys made some pretty, well, we won't go into some of the comments they made, some of our lead people, but it became personal, and we enjoyed beating them. And so there's a lot of, and not only from that, we actually won $25,000, and that was additional seed money that we put into the building the business and training the young women and some of the widows over in Cambodia. So it was pretty cool. And then lastly is the impact. I cannot tell you the impact that these kids have made on the lives of the villagers and the pastors over in Cambodia. It's life-changing. It's life-changing for them, and we're really excited about it. But the biggest thing is the empowerment of the people that we're changing lives for in Cambodia. So I went through that fast, and I know we want to maybe just have, I'd like to hear your ideas and some general discussions with Chris and Arlie. So I'll leave it there. Any questions? I know I went through that fast.